All right, welcome to the Tuesday Morning Show. I'm Chris Ruvo, senior writer for Advantages Magazine. And for reasons no one quite understands, I've been asked to host the show today. I'm sure that the powers that be are going to regret that decision soon enough, but in any event, let's try to get forward here. We have a couple of trusty sidekicks to help me keep things on track. There is, of course, the man, the myth, the managing editor, Joe Haley. How are you, Joe?
I'm good. I don't know if I feel like Tano or if I feel like Ed McMahon.
Okay, all right.
You are correct, sir.
I'm going for both. And, of course, you have Teresa Hagel, too. Teresa's senior writer for Stitches and Wearables, and you had some nice achievements lately, didn't you?
I had some awards. I'm pretty excited.
All right, and what were they?
What was it? It was a Neil Award for Best Range of Work by a single author. Me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you know.
What about that you say?
Yes,
Okay.
and then I think the other one was for that the story we did on that extreme shop makeover last year.
All right, very good. Well, congratulations.
And for those who don't know, the Neil Awards are considered the Pulitzer Prize of the B2B publishing world.
That's true. It is
this is a top award.
It is no small accomplishment at all. We have Facebook Vinny Driscoll and Lauren Medina manning the boards for us, but of course you didn't tune in to hear us talk about ourselves. You're here for insights from our very special guest, Lisa Peskin. She's a veteran sales trainer and CEO of Business Development University in Philadelphia. She has more than 25 years' experience in sales performance and management, and over the years, she has literally helped thousands of sales professionals and sales managers improve their performance and increase sales. And today, she's going to deliver insights into everything from developing a successful sales game plan to leveraging social media for business. So Lisa, thank you for being with us. Let's just get right into the questions. You've talked at ASI shows about developing a highly successful sales game plan. Can you give us a few pointers for doing that?
I will be thrilled to do that. And first of all, thanks so much for the opportunity to be part of your program today. And my passion is really helping salespeople and sales managers drive revenues. So I'm hoping some of the pointers that we talk about today can actually get implemented and affect your revenues, your sales, and ultimately the money that's put in your pocket. So to answer your question regarding a highly effective sales game plan, there's a couple key pointers that are critical in making sure that you have that well-defined game plan. And the way I like to look at a game plan is a rolling 30, 60, 90-day game plan that is so well-defined that you could actually provide it to somebody else and they could actually implement it. So in order to do that, I always think about it. I never played football a day in my life, but before a football coach comes into the game plan, they've got to do a certain amount of homework ahead of time. And for individuals and companies, that's critical. They've got to take a look at what has happened in the past, what's worked, what hasn't worked, and really understand their numbers so they can figure out what the best things for them to do moving forward. So to understand your numbers, you really need to understand what the business breakdown is. The wonderful thing about the promotion business is a lot of the business that makes up the annual totals is repeat business. It's repeat business from the existing client base. Then we've got the additional business that we sell to the client base, whether it's new departments, divisions, or new items that we're providing them. And then we've got the new business coming in the door. So you really got to make sure you're breaking down that business. And then with the new business coming in the door, you've really got to get an understanding of where it's come from. Because sometimes when you do that source of business analysis and really figure out where that business is coming from, it really gives you good ideas as far as where you should be spending your time. A couple other key numbers that you need to have in order to develop your effective game plan. You got to know what your close ratio is, which is how many times you're actually presenting your solutions or pricing or products versus how many times you're winning the business. And once you get that, then it's a matter of figuring out where you're going to focus your business development efforts and putting together SMART goals. And for those of you who don't know what SMART goals are, this one line can change your entire life. I know that's a pretty powerful statement, but all goals need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be aligned with the company goals. They need to be realistic, and there needs to be a time frame around that. And most people, when they're putting together the game plan, they just put together result goals. but it's also important to put together activity goals. And once you've got that, you can develop your 30, 60, 90-day game plan that really helps guide you on the road to success.
Very good.
And I have a question for you. Just wondering if you could share like what you think the top 5 characteristics of successful sales pros are.
Well, that's a fantastic question. And one of the things, after being in sales for 25 plus years, I figured out sales success is a function of 3 areas. One is, am I doing the right activities to fill my pipeline with good qualified prospects on a consistent basis? There's a lot of key words to that sentence. Qualified prospects, consistent basis, and it's really figuring out between prospecting, networking, and client marketing how to fill that pipeline. The second is sales process. So once you've got a suspect or prospect sitting in front of you, what's the process that you're going to take them through? That relates to your close ratios, sales cycle. The last piece of the puzzle is attitude and motivation. Am I willing to do what it takes to be successful, but am I committed to doing it? Day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out. So when I look at the 5 characteristics of successful sales professionals, I want someone that's willing and committed with a high level of motivation. I want someone that knows how to deal with adversity, because the fact of the matter is in sales we get a lot more no's than we're going to get yeses. Having a well-defined game plan, making sure you're doing the right activities, consistently filling the sales pipeline, and a well-defined process.
Very good, Lisa. This is Joe. Sometimes the sales cycle can be rather long, or it's sometimes too long for reps. What can they do to help shorten that sales cycle?
Well, there's a lot of things that salespeople can do to shorten that sales cycle. One of the most important things is what they do at the very beginning of that sales cycle. Where I see a lot of disconnects is a lot of salespeople don't know how to run an effective first appointment with their prospects. They don't know how to set expectations. They don't know how to gather key information. And when I talk about key information, I talk about there's 2 types of needs. There's what the prospect needs. That would be how many shirts, how many pens, how many flashlights. But what the salesperson needs is to understand who the decision makers are, what the decision-making process is, what the decision-making timeline, whether this is a like-to-have or want-to-have or must-have, who else are they looking at, what are they going to base their decision on, and really truly understanding what the return on investment is going to be through them buying, whether it be apparel or promotional items. So in order to shorten that sales cycle, they've got to make sure they're uncovering key information, and they need to create a sense of urgency. So one of my great stories of somebody that's in your industry is somebody that went into Lincoln Financial, which is our local stadium here in Philadelphia, and instead of going in and talking about what everybody else was doing and pricing out what they have already bought in the past, she positioned herself as an addition to their marketing department and came up with the idea of clear backpacks for every kid that came in the stadium up to 12 years old. And based upon the fact that she came up with an idea that was going to help them in accomplishing their goals, it shortened the sales cycle. The other thing is you've got to make sure you really, truly uncover the ROI and create that sense of urgency.
Or kind of a related topic here. What would you say is your number one secret to closing a sale?
Well, there's a lot of secrets to closing a sale, but if you're going to ask me the number one, and it might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but after, again, 25 plus years in sales and sales management, I've come to the realization that nobody in this whole wide world likes to be sold anything, and I think we've got to stop trying to sell our stuff. I think it's all about finding an individual or a company that you could help with your product or service. In the promotional items business, it's really coming up with ideas that are going to help them accomplish their goals. So I think the number one secret is finding organizations, colleges, companies that you can help out with your ideas and help them achieve their goals.
Hey, it's Teresa again. I have a question actually about social media, and I'm just wondering how sales reps can best leverage social media.
Well, for business-to-business sales reps, one of the keys as far as social media to me is the utilization of LinkedIn. Yes, we've got our Facebook and our Twitter and our Instagram, and there should be a coordinated effort with all social media, and especially on a company level. But when you're talking about a sales individual level, I think that LinkedIn has to be used on a daily basis. And you wish them happy anniversaries. You keep in touch with your network, because your network, the really great salespeople out there, understand the power of networking and how it's the difference between a fisherman who fishes with a fishing rod and fishes with a net. Prospecting is fishing with a fishing rod. You can only catch one fish. As opposed to networking, you go into the pool of fish and get a whole bunch. Every person that you meet, you should be going through their LinkedIn profile. You should be finding common areas, whether it's been the school that you went to or common connections. When you can find those connections with individuals, then you get from selling them to having a conversation in a much more consultative approach. In addition to this, you've got to get LinkedIn recommendations. So I tell people, and I'm hoping everybody that's listening is going to link into me, Lisa Peskin, and check out my recommendations. The power of those recommendations is phenomenal. Oftentimes, that alone shortens the sales cycle, because people say, can I get some references? I say, check out my recommendations. If you see anybody there you want to have a conversation with, let me know. And basically, they look at it and go, oh, we're good to go. It sounds like you're making a huge impact on companies. Love the opportunity to work with you. And the other thing is, LinkedIn is a great prospecting tool. The power of your network is not necessarily your first connection, but it's the second connection, asking for introductions. And the other thing is, the key really that I figured out is the key to networking is giving introductions on a consistent basis. So we have a program just on leveraging LinkedIn for business development that anywhere from Aramark to the really small companies, and making sure that people know how to utilize this tool to drive revenues.
All right, Lisa, we talked about reps. This one's for the sales managers. What are the best ways for them to maximize their team's performance?
Well, this is my favorite topic in the whole wide world, because when I was running a 40-man sales force for ADP, I managed 4 different sales managers who managed 10 people each. And I figured out that sales managers have a one-line job description. All they need to do is figure out how to maximize their direct report success. And that's all it's about, is really figuring out how to maximize their potential. So if they're underperforming, how do we get them over quota? If they're average, how do we get them good? If they're good, how to get them great? And if they're great, how to get them superstars? So it's really figuring out and understanding your individual direct report. And I used to think you could cookie cutter sales associates and manage them exactly the same way. And what I've come to realize is everybody has their own individual strengths and what I call areas of opportunity. And the key to sales management is understanding what 3 areas that, if improved upon, are going to have the biggest impact on performance. I call them triage areas. So once you know your direct reports triage areas, the 3 areas that are going to have the biggest impact on the performance, all you need to do is then figuring out whether it's a training issue, a coaching issue, or an accountability issue. And a lot of times for small companies that the owners trying to manage their sales associates and don't necessarily have the time, the background, or the inclination to do that, we actually do outsource sales management so they don't even have to worry, but they can make sure their sales associates are being as successful as possible.
There you go. All right, Lisa. Well, thank you for joining us today. Any final thoughts for the listeners today? Any major takeaway they should get from what you shared?
Well, the one major takeaway that I'm hoping everybody's going to get out of taking their time for listening today is figure out what your triage areas are. Figure out what 3 areas that if you improved upon are going to have the biggest impact on performance. Because once you do that, then putting things in place, it could have a significant impact on not only the individual's performance, but ultimately the company's performance.
All right, Lisa. Well, thank you so much for joining us. That was Lisa Peskin, veteran sales trainer and CEO of Business Development University. Joe, what did you think of what she had to say?
Well, I thought it was awesome. One of the things I know that I'm going to do, I'm going to, link up with her on LinkedIn. But yeah, it's all about motivating those salespeople. That last question, motivating them individually. It's not like one homogenous group that everyone has the same things. That will motivate them. We know it's different for different people, so sales managers should take that into account.
Yeah, great stuff. How about you, Teresa?
No, I agree with Joe. I think that everyone is different. That works just in, our industry too. Like every writer works differently, I think. So you have to kind of know your staff and know how to motivate them.
Yeah, good stuff. I really like the advice about the developing the plan and just how in depth she was about how you should go about doing that, because it seems like if you really crossed those T's and dotted those I's, so to speak, the way that she outlined there, you'd have a really watertight plan for going forward, and it would almost be hard not to succeed if you execute it. But let's jump into some other stuff here. We have why laughter is essential in business, and we're pretty good at this, don't you think? Yeah, goofy and idiotic around the
Yes,
office.
it's a regular chuckle hut in our department.
Yeah, well, anyway, listen, there's science behind this. People way smarter than us at MIT and the Wharton School of Business have done studies, and they found that laughter not only relieves stress and boredom, it boosts engagement and well-being, and it spurs creativity, collaboration, and also, I didn't know this, analytic precision and productivity.
Really?
I wouldn't have guessed that, but there you go.
We didn't know that.
All right. So the question then becomes, how do you kind of spur more laughter around the workplace? How do you get, humor into the workplace without, going overboard, so to speak? You could take a cue from the authors of this book, The Human Code, this is a phrase you guys are going to love. They say that the key to humor is benign violation. And I know that sounds really risque, but it's not at all. Basically what they're telling you is that laughter happens across cultures when somebody says something that's slightly wrong, unsettling, or threatening, but it's also not overly that. It's still okay, acceptable, and safe. So around the office, a good for instance of that would be you're sharing self-deprecating jokes with your peers, okay? Or you're doing some light teasing among office colleagues. Or even, and I found this was funny that they gave this as a recommendation, you're kind of privately poking fun at, say you have a consultant in or a speaker in and they're maybe arrogant or boring or whatever, and you all kind of poke fun at that, or an intern who's totally clueless or something like that. That's all ways of generating, humor around the office. Of course, you want to watch out. You don't want to say anything discriminatory that's going to go over the line, so be mindful of that. As you try to interject some humor in your workplace, though, keep these couple pointers in mind. It's not whether or not you're funny, it's what kind of funny you are. So be honest and authentic. If you can't be ha-ha funny, at least be aha funny. So be
aha. Now I get it. Okay.
Cleverness is sometimes good enough. And, good comedy is a quote-unquote conspiracy. So anytime that you can, it's not about you being the comedian. It's about you drawing people in and kind of having a shared humorous experience. Don't be afraid to laugh at yourself. This will actually help you perform better because it'll relieve some stress. And then finally, laughter is disarming. So if there's a big project that everybody's nervous about or a deadline that's pending and things aren't going well with the project, kind of poke fun at the situation, and that might actually help you be more successful in the long run in achieving it.
I think that humor really does relieve stress, and I think that, it can take tension out of tense situations and stuff. And it's always good to have a good laugh. For interns, a few years ago, tomorrow's a great day to inject your humor into the workplace.
Yeah.
On April Fool's Day, many years ago, for an intern, I circulated a office memo because prior to email and stuff, saying that all interns were going to get fitted with an intern blazer, so that anyone throughout the company could easily identify who the interns were. So if they needed like something to run out and get lunch or something like that, if they saw an intern, no matter what department they worked in, they could just grab them and go. And I said, don't. The memo said, don't worry about the blazer. We're gonna dry clean it for you. We're gonna fit you. You don't have to pay anything out, but we'll be able to identify who you are. Nice bright purple intern. And then I also did a smoking memo once to one of the guys who smoked in our department, and made it very difficult to be a smoker in this company, and it was quite fun to watch.
Okay, all right.
But and disarming those tense situations. I was on a jury a couple years ago, and trial was over, and we did our verdict and all that. And we were dismissed, and we all end up in this tiny little elevator at the Montgomery County Courthouse, and we're going down. And I do that thing, if you've ever ridden an elevator with me, I make it awkward for everyone by facing everyone else.
Oh, you're that guy.
Everyone sit there and face everyone.
Yeah.
And I just shot them with a line, because no one was saying anything. I just shot them from a line from Hoosiers. I just looked at them and I said, I love you guys. And, it broke the tension. We laughed, ha, ha, ha. But we're not exchanging Christmas cards.
All right. Well, that actually segues nicely into what you're going to tell us about,
Yes.
Joe, which is how to
See
deal
what I
with
did?
awkward situations.
Yeah, so awkward situations. We all hate them because they're what?
Awkward.
Awkward. Okay, so there was this study done where they put college. They said most of the awkwardness happens with younger people, college students. So there was a study done. It doesn't say who done the study. Oh, Joshua Clegg. And what he did was he had a room full of people, one at a time would come in, tell them to sit anywhere they wanted. There was water pitchers on the table, and there was a plate of cookies. Nothing else. And he just closed the door, and they were given no instructions whatsoever. They just sat there. Just sat there. It's like the door's closed.
Sounds excruciating,
Everyone's there.
actually.
Yeah. And he came back later, and he says, okay, when I come back later on, everyone's going to have to tell me something about someone else in the group, and left again. And they videotaped the whole thing, and they found out what some of the awkward situations were. And some of them are typical for when we're in our situations, when we go to trade shows or networking events, or even maybe calling on clients, and you didn't realize you thought you were calling on Chris. And, Chris brings you back to this conference room, and there's 5 other people here I don't know. So one of them is walking in a room where you don't know other people, being in a situation in which you don't know what you're supposed to do. So in other words, there's no obvious norms. There's no roles. There's people in that room together with the door closed. Do we drink water? Do we eat the cookies? What do we do? You're talking amongst yourself, and someone new and unknown to anyone approaches the group. Did you ever that happen?
Oh, yeah, sure,
Hi.
for sure. It throws off the whole dynamic.
When a conversation does not go smoothly, and when you come into that room, say you're going to pitch a client, and you go into a room with 5 other people there, you're not ready for it. It's awkward. You start stumbling over your words. Someone interrupts you. Someone throws you a question you can't answer. Those could be discomforting. Discomfort around food.
That's true.
How do you eat? When do you eat? Do I take the first cookie? Who's going to take the last cookie? You take a bite of a cookie and someone
Am I
eats you.
chewing too loudly?
Yeah. Don't get me started on table manners.
All right.
I grew up in a big house, and we have good table manners. Invading someone else's personal space, which is another thing. When we go to trade shows, a lot of times someone.
Close talkers.
Yeah, I have my next door neighbor. He chases me across my yard because he always takes a step closer in when I'm talking. He's talking to me. He takes a step closer in. When someone says or implies something unkind, forgetting someone's name, or the other one, having your name forgotten. Someone doesn't realize who you are. And there's someone in this industry that every time I speak with this person, it is if we are just being introduced for the same time, because this person always says, "Oh, it's nice to meet you." Really? 3 times this year.
Maybe they're face blind.
Yeah.
Not remembering another person at all. I went to my grade school 30-year reunion years ago, and it was like looking at people. It's like, you really went to this school? And then people saying that to me, too. It's like, it was just so odd and awkward. And feeling like you've been put in the spotlight when you weren't, expecting
We're not expecting it. Yeah.
So here's some ways to escape from the awkwardness. Find common interests. Okay, so we're in this room together. What are our common interests? People like to talk about what they like. Discuss what interests you. Okay, so people like to talk about what they like. Encourage others to talk about what interests them. Okay, so that's the whole common interest thing. Help someone out. Okay, if someone's struggling in a situation, give him a hand. Give him an out there, because it's painful to watch someone who's completely just.
They're at sea. They're at sea in
Yeah.
the situation. Yeah.
We had a guy come in for a position here once, and a bunch of us were interviewing him, and he came into my office, and I'd never seen a person look more scared in their life, profusely sweating.
Yeah.
Sweating, and his palms, and he's shaking, and the voice is quivering. So I tried to help him out, because I'm wearing a sports coat. So it's warming. Let's take off our jackets, and he didn't want this. He's like,
Wait, you saw that he was sweating and you asked him to take his jacket
no,
off?
I had a blazer on too, so I didn't take it off. It's hot in here.
I said the guy might have had like pit stains down the side of his.
No, you ask Melinda about the sweater.
Right.
She'll probably say something nice about another person or something associated with another person. So we're in this, this room, and it's kind of awkward. You don't know her; she doesn't know you. You can say, you know about Teresa. Teresa's, world-class writer. She's just won a couple of Neil Awards, which is the B2B promotional products industry. We're all proud of her.
Right.
She really did a great job. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting, Teresa. Blah blah blah, and acknowledge the awkwardness.
I like doing that.
This is awkward.
Yeah, that little joke, and that kind of breaks the tension.
It does, and it goes back to your topic. See, it's all come full circle. But we will post this online so everyone can get a gander at it.
All right, Teresa, real quick. You have 9 ways to make Monday morning amazing. Maybe you don't have to do 9, but give us a couple of the top ones.
Yeah.
Coffee.
Coffee. Well, coffee works every day, I think.
And a little something stronger in it.
That's even better.
Yeah.
Now, I think a big one they say is to get organized on Sunday night, the night before. Take some time to kind of, plan your clothes, your tasks, your schedule. Then you can sleep better. You don't have to worry about things. You can
Iron
just,
those socks.
Exactly. Iron your socks the night before. Another one is start out with a workout to kind of, do your cardio, get your energy levels up ahead of time. Listen to music. Start an exciting project. Or, if nothing else is working for you, start planning your weekend on Monday.
Okay. I like that idea.
That one's probably the best.
Remind yourself that you only have a few days to go.
It's only 5 days, and then you can leave. So.
All right. Would you have a personal favorite?
I like planning the weekend.
Planning
That's a good one.
I could have guessed that. All right, guys. I think that's all we have time for today. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. And the regular crew will be back next week. Take care.